Commander Zarathal stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching her fleet die. Through the wide viewing screen, she could see her ships burning in the cold darkness of space. One by one, they fell silent. The enemy moved through them like a plague, consuming everything in its path. The Devourers had appeared 3 days ago. They came without warning, without any message or demand. They simply began eating. First, they consumed the outer defense stations. Then they moved inward, devouring ships, space stations, and anything else they found. Nothing could stop them. "Commander, we have lost contact with Battle Group 7, reported Lieutenant Vexstar from his station. His forearms moved quickly over the controls, but his voice shook with fear. "That is the last of our heavy cruisers." Zarathal closed her eyes for a moment. Battle Group 7 had 20 ships. Now they were gone, just like all the others. In 3 days, the greatest fleet in the Galactic Federation had been reduced to a handful of damaged vessels, hiding behind a dying moon. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked. 12, Commander. Maybe 13 if the medical frigate can get its engines working again. 12 ships. The Federation had started this battle with over 300 vessels. Ships from dozens of different worlds, all working together under the Federation banner. The greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. And now there were 12. The Devourers were unlike anything the Federation had ever faced. They looked like a cross between machines and living creatures. Their ships grew and changed shape during battle. When Federation weapons hit them, they adapted. Laser fire that worked once would fail the second time. Missiles that found their target would be ignored on the next attack. "Commander," called out Science Officer Relmoon, "I am reading massive energy signatures from the enemy formation. They are preparing for another attack." Zarathal looked at the tactical display. Red dots moved across the screen, showing the position of enemy ships. There were hundreds of them now. More appeared every hour, growing from the wreckage of destroyed Federation vessels. The Devourers were not just destroying the fleet, they were using it to make themselves stronger. "Can we run?" she asked. "Negative, Commander. They are faster than our remaining ships. Even if we could escape, they would follow us to the core worlds." The core worlds. Zarathal thought about the billions of beings living on the Federation's home planets, families, children, entire civilizations that had never known war. If the Devourers reached them, it would be the end of everything the Federation had built over thousands of years. "There must be something we can do," she said. "Some weapon we have not tried. Some tactic we have not considered." Science Officer Relmoon shook his head. His people, the Cathani, were known throughout the galaxy for their intelligence. If he could not find a solution, then perhaps there was none. "Commander, we have tried everything. Our most powerful weapons, our best strategies, even the forbidden technologies from the old wars. Nothing works. The enemy learns too quickly. They adapt to everything we do." Zarathal stared at the tactical display. The red dots were moving closer. Soon, the last of the Federation fleet would join the others in death. And after that, the Devourers would continue their march toward the populated worlds. "Wait," said Relmoon suddenly. He was looking at something on his screen, his large eyes wide with what might have been hope. "Commander, there is one option we have not considered." "What is it?" "The humans." A silence fell over the bridge. Every officer turned to look at Science Officer Relmoon. The humans were a forbidden subject in Federation space. Their world had been marked off limits over 50 years ago, after the first contact incident. "You cannot be serious," said Lieutenant Vexstar. "The humans are quarantined, for good reason. The Council declared them too dangerous for contact." "I know," said Relmoon, "but that is exactly why we need them now." Zarathal remembered the reports from the first contact team. Earth was a small world on the edge of Federation space. Its people had just developed faster than light travel when the Federation found them. The contact team had expected to find another peaceful species, ready to join the galactic community. Instead, they found something that terrified them. The humans were warriors. Not just soldiers who fought when necessary, but a species that seemed to live for conflict. Their entire history was one long story of war, conquest, and survival against impossible odds. They had weapons the Federation considered barbaric, and they used them without hesitation. The first contact team had returned with a simple recommendation: avoid Earth at all costs. The Council will never approve contact with the humans, said Vexstar. The Council is dead, Zarathal replied quietly. The Devourers destroyed the capital ships 3 hours ago. There is no one left to give orders except us. She looked around the bridge at her remaining officers. They were good beings. All of them. They had served the Federation with honor and followed its laws without question. But the Federation was dying, and its laws would die with it. Science Officer Relmoon, do we have the equipment needed to send a message to Earth? Yes, Commander. The long-range communications array is still functional. Then send the message. Tell the humans what we face. Ask for their help. Commander, said Vexter, if we do this, there is no going back. We will be responsible for bringing the humans into our galaxy. Whatever happens after that will be our fault. Zarathal looked at the tactical display one more time. The red dots were very close now. In minutes, the Devourers would begin their final attack. After that, there would be no one left to take responsibility for anything. Send the message, she ordered. Relmoon worked quickly at his station. His fingers moved over the controls as he composed humanity's first official communication from the Galactic Federation. It was not the greeting they had planned to send when first contact was finally made. Instead, it was a cry for help from a dying civilization. Message sent, Commander, he reported. Transmission time to Earth is approximately 6 hours. Then we wait, said Zarathal, and we pray that the humans are as dangerous as we feared. Outside the viewing screen, the Devourers began their final approach. The last 12 ships of the Galactic Federation prepared to make their final stand, and somewhere in the darkness of space, a message raced toward a small blue world where humanity waited, unaware that their galaxy's greatest fear was about to become its only hope. Admiral Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alert came through. The communications center at Solar Defense Command had been quiet for months. Most of their work involved tracking space debris and coordinating mining operations in the asteroid belt. They were not expecting to receive the most important message in human history. Admiral, called Lieutenant Sarah Miller from her station, we are receiving an unusual transmission. It appears to be coming from outside the solar system. Jake set down his coffee and walked over to her station. Outside the solar system. Are you sure the equipment is working properly? Yes, sir. I have checked it 3 times. The signal is definitely artificial, and it is definitely coming from deep space. Jake looked at the data on Sarah's screen. The signal was unlike anything they had ever received. It was complex, layered with multiple frequencies and mathematical patterns. Whatever had sent it possessed technology far beyond anything humans had developed. Have you been able to decode any of it? No, sir. But Dr. Lisa Carter is on her way up from the linguistics department. If anyone can figure out what this says, it would be her. Dr. Lisa Carter arrived 20 minutes later, carrying a portable computer and looking excited. She had spent her entire career studying the possibility of alien communication. Most of her colleagues thought she was wasting her time. Now she was about to prove them wrong. Let me hear it, she said as soon as she entered the communication. Center. Sarah played the recording. Strange sounds filled the room, unlike anything any human had ever heard. There were musical tones, complex rhythms, and what sounded like mathematical equations spoken in an alien language. Lisa listened carefully, her fingers moving over her computer as she ran the sounds through various analysis programs. "This is incredible," she said. "The signal contains multiple layers of information, mathematical constants, star charts, even what appears to be a basic translation key." "How long will it take you to decode it?" Jake asked. "Give me 6 hours," Lisa replied. "Maybe less if I am right about the translation key." It took her 4 hours and 37 minutes. Jake was in a meeting with the Joint Chiefs when Lisa burst into the conference room. Her hair was messy and her clothes were wrinkled, but her eyes were bright with excitement and fear. "Admiral, I have translated the message. You need to read this right now." She handed him a printed document. Jake read it quickly, then read it again more slowly. The other officers in the room watched his face change from confusion to concern to something approaching alarm. "Is this real?" he asked. "I have checked the translation 5 times. The message is from something called the Galactic Federation. They are under attack by an enemy they call the Div. Their entire military has been destroyed, and they are asking for our help." General Robert King, the head of the Marine Corps, laughed. "This has to be some kind of joke. Aliens asking us for help. We can barely get to Mars without something going wrong." "It is not a joke," Lisa said firmly. "The mathematical proofs in the message are beyond anything we could create. This is real, and they are desperate." Admiral Morrison read parts of the message out loud. "To the humans of Earth. We are the Galactic Federation, representing over 400 species across this galaxy. We are under attack by an enemy that threatens all life. Our fleets have been destroyed, our worlds are in danger, and we have nowhere else to turn. We know of your species through long-range observation. We know that your people are warriors. We ask for your help in our darkest hour." The room fell silent. For decades, humans had wondered if they were alone in the universe. The answer had finally come, and it was asking them to go to war. "What do we know about these devourers?" asked General Amanda Foster, head of the Air Force. Lisa pulled up more data on her computer. According to the message, they are but entities that consume matter and energy to reproduce. They adapt to any weapon used against them, making them nearly impossible to fight using conventional tactics. And this Galactic Federation thinks we can help. They seem to believe that human military doctrine is different enough to be effective where theirs failed. President Kevin Hayes was called to an emergency session that evening. The message had been verified by every expert the government could find. The signal definitely came from space. The technology behind it was clearly beyond human capability, and the translation appeared to be accurate. "What are our options?" the president asked. Admiral Morrison stood up and activated a holographic display. "We have been working on this all day, Mr. President. The Federation has provided coordinates for a rendezvous point, approximately 30 light-years from Earth. We could reach it using our newest ship, the USV Vigilance." The USV Vigilance was humanity's most advanced spacecraft. It had been designed as a deep space exploration vessel, but it carried enough weapons to handle any threat they might encounter. At least, any threat they had imagined encountering. How many people would we be sending? "The ship has a crew of 300. We would send our best people. Captain Alex Rodriguez would command the vessel. Colonel Nina Brooks would lead our ground forces. And if this is a trap, then we lose 1 ship and 300 people," Morrison replied honestly. "But if it is real, and we do nothing, these devourers might eventually find Earth." The president considered this for a long moment. The decision he made would change human history forever. Either they would make first contact with an alien civilization, or they would send their best people to die in a distant part of space. "Make it happen," he said finally. "But I want our best people on that ship. If we are going to help these aliens fight their war, we are going to do it right." 3 weeks later, the USV Vigilance left Earth orbit. Captain Alex Rodriguez stood on the bridge, watching his homeworld shrink behind them. Beside him, Chief Engineer Ben Murphy monitored the ship's experimental faster-than-light drive. "All systems are green, Captain," Ben reported. "We will reach the rendezvous point in 4 days." "Good," Alex replied. "Make sure the weapon systems are ready. According to the Federation message, we might be going straight into a fight." In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Amy Watson was reviewing everything they knew about alien biology. It was not much. The Federation had provided basic information about their species, but there were still many unknowns. Down in the Marine barracks, Colonel Nina Brooks was giving her final briefing to the troops. "We do not know what we will find out there," she told them. "We might be fighting to save an alien civilization, or we might be walking into the biggest trap in human history. Either way, we will do our duty." The Marines listened carefully. They were volunteers, every one of them. When word had gone out that humanity was going to war among the stars, there had been no shortage of people willing to go. Major Chris Evans, the ship's tactical officer, was studying everything the Federation had told them about the enemy sounded formidable, but Chris had fought in every major conflict of the past 20 years. He had learned that there was no such thing as an unbeatable enemy. As the USV Vigilance raced through space toward its rendezvous with history, the crew prepared for whatever they might find. They carried with them the hopes of their entire species, and the determination to prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars. Behind them, Earth continued its quiet orbit around the sun. Most of its people had no idea that their representatives were traveling to a distant part of the galaxy to fight in someone else's war. They would learn the truth soon enough. The age of humanity's isolation was ending. The age of galactic war was about to begin. The USV Vigilance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of an unknown star system. Captain Alex Rodriguez stood on the bridge, looking at the collection of alien ships that waited for them. There were maybe 15 vessels, all different shapes and sizes. They looked damaged and desperate. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Jenny Walsh from the communications station, "we are receiving a transmission from the lead alien ship. They are asking us to identify ourselves. Tell them we are the human response to their distress call. Ask for permission to come aboard their command vessel." Within an hour, Alex found himself in the strangest meeting of his life. The alien command ship was huge inside, with corridors wide enough for creatures much larger than humans. The air was breathable, but it smelled different. Everything felt different. Ambassador Kethfer was waiting for them in what appeared to be a conference room. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms and large eyes that seemed to see everything. When he spoke, his voice was translated by a small device that hung around his neck. "Captain Rodriguez, I am grateful that your species chose to respond to our call for help. I am afraid the situation is worse than when we sent the message." "How much worse?" Alex asked. "The Devourers have consumed 3 more star systems. They are moving toward the core worlds at an alarming rate. We estimate that they will reach the most populated Federation planets within 2 months." Dr. Amy Watson, who had come aboard with the captain, leaned forward. "Tell us about these Devourers. What exactly are we fighting?" Kethfer activated a holographic display in the center of the table. The image that appeared made the humans uncomfortable. The Devourers looked like a nightmare combination of machine and living creature. They had no fixed shape, constantly changing as they moved. "They appeared 6 months ago at the edge of our territory," Kethver explained. "At first, we thought they were another species seeking to join the Federation. We sent diplomatic ships to make contact." "What happened to the diplomatic ships?" asked Colonel Nina Brooks. "They were consumed, completely. The Devourers absorbed the ships, the crews, everything. Then they began to reproduce." Major Chris Evans studied the holographic display carefully. "How do they reproduce?" "They use consumed matter to create more of themselves. Every ship they destroy, every station they consume, makes them stronger. Our own weapons have become part of their arsenal." The tactical implications of this hit Chris immediately. They learn from what they eat. Exactly. When we first fought them, our plasma cannons were effective. After they consumed a few of our ships, they developed defenses against plasma weapons. The same happened with our missiles, our energy beams, even our defensive shields. Dr. Watson was taking notes on her portable computer. How long does this adaptation process take? Minutes. Sometimes less. They analyze whatever is used against them and develop countermeasures almost instantly. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. No wonder the Federation fleet had been destroyed. How do you fight an enemy that learns from every attack? What about your ground forces? Colonel Brooks asked. Have you fought them on the surface of planets? Kethver's large eyes seemed to dim. We tried. The Devourers do not just consume ships and stations, they consume entire worlds. The ground battles lasted hours at most. Show us combat footage, Chris requested. We need to see how they fight. For the next 2 hours, the humans watched recordings of Federation battles against the Devourers. The alien ships and tactics were impressive, but they followed predictable patterns. The Federation forces moved in precise formations, used coordinated attacks, and followed established military doctrine. The Devourers adapted to all of it. I think I see the problem, Chris said finally. Your people fight like soldiers. Disciplined, organized, predictable. Of course, Kethver replied. How else should soldiers fight? Chris looked at Alex, who nodded. Ambassador, may we have permission to examine some of the wreckage from your battles? Certainly, but I do not understand what you hope to learn that our scientists have not already discovered. 3 hours later, Sergeant Tony Martinez and his squad were floating through the wreckage of a Federation battleship. Their suits were equipped with recording devices and sample containers. They moved through the destroyed vessel like detectives at a crime scene. Look at this damage pattern, Tony said over the radio. The holes in the hull are perfectly round, like they were cut with surgical precision. The Devourers did not just destroy this ship, observed Corporal Lisa Frank. They harvested it. Look how they removed specific components while leaving others intact. Back on the USV Vigilance, Dr. Watson was analyzing the samples the Marines had collected. What she found made her call an immediate meeting with the senior staff. The Devourers are not just adapting to Federation weapons, she announced. They are specifically designed to counter Federation technology and tactics. What do you mean? Alex asked. Look at this. Amy activated a display showing the molecular structure of Devourer material. Their composition includes elements that are specifically reactive to Federation energy frequencies. It is as if they were created to fight the Federation. Chief Engineer Ben Murphy studied the data. Are you saying someone built these things as weapons? That is exactly what I am saying. The Devourers are not a natural species. They are artificial constructs, designed by someone who knew exactly how the Federation would fight them. The implications of this discovery hit everyone at the same time. The Devourers were not just raiders or invaders. They were weapons, created by some unknown enemies specifically to destroy the Galactic Federation. Who would do such a thing? Kethver asked when they shared their findings with him. We do not know yet, Alex replied, but we know something else. The Devourers were designed to fight the Federation. They were not designed to fight humans. What difference does that make? Chris smiled grimly. Ambassador, your people fight wars the way civilized beings should fight wars. Rules, tactics, predictable strategies. The Devourers were programmed to counter that kind of warfare. And humans fight differently. Humans fight like animals, Colonel Brooks said bluntly. When we are cornered, we do not follow rules. We do whatever it takes to survive. Over the next few days, the human crew studied everything they could about the Devourers. They analyzed their attack patterns, their reproduction methods, their adaptation capabilities. Most importantly, they looked for weaknesses. I think I have found something, Dr. Watson announced during one of their daily briefings. The Devourer's adaptation process is incredibly fast, but it has limits. They can only process and counter a certain number of different attack types at once. How many? Chris asked. Based on the combat data, I estimate they can adapt to maybe 5 or 6 different weapon types simultaneously. After that, their processing power becomes overloaded. So if we hit them with 7 different types of attacks at the same time, some of them should get through, Amy confirmed. But even with this knowledge, the humans were facing a daunting challenge. The Federation had failed with the most advanced military in the galaxy. What made them think a single human ship could do better? The answer came to Alex during a conversation with his senior staff. They were discussing tactics when Sergeant Martinez made an offhand comment about his time fighting insurgents back on Earth. The thing about fighting guerrillas, Tony said, is that they do not fight fair. They hit you when you are not expecting it, use weapons you do not recognize, and break every rule of warfare. That is it, Alex said suddenly. The were designed to fight the Federation's kind of war. But they were not designed to fight our kind of war. What is our kind of war? Kethfer asked. Alex looked around the room at his officers. They were all veterans of human conflicts, people who had learned to fight against impossible odds, using whatever means necessary. Ambassador, he said, you are about to learn why your people quarantined our world, and why that might be the only thing that can save your civilization. The attack came without warning. Captain Alex Rodriguez was reviewing tactical plans when the alarm sounded throughout the USV Vigilance. Red lights flashed in the corridors as the crew rushed to battle stations. On the bridge, the main display showed dozens of hostile contacts dropping out of faster-than-light travel. How many? Alex asked as he took his position in the captain's chair. 43 enemy ships, reported Lieutenant Commander Sam Parker from the tactical station. They are moving to surround our position. Through the view screen, Alex could see the Devourers for the first time. They were horrible to look at, shifting and changing shape as they moved. Some looked like mechanical spiders, the size of buildings. Others resembled organic creatures with metal parts grafted onto their bodies. All of them radiated a sense of wrongness that made humans uncomfortable just looking at them. Federation ships are breaking formation, called out communications. Officer Jenny Walsh. They are requesting permission to retreat. Denied, Alex said firmly. Tell them to hold position and follow our lead. On the Federation command ship, Ambassador Kethfer watched in confusion as the human vessel moved forward instead of backward. What are they doing? He asked his tactical officer. I do not know, Ambassador. They appear to be moving directly toward the enemy formation. The USV Vigilance accelerated toward the Devourer fleet at maximum speed. This was not how civilized species fought wars. Civilized species formed battle lines, exchanged long-range fire, and maneuvered carefully to gain advantage. They did not charge directly at superior enemy forces. Prepare for ramming speed, Alex ordered. Chief Engineer Ben Murphy looked up from his station in alarm. Captain, we cannot survive a direct collision with one of those ships. We are not planning to survive it, Ben. We are planning to make it count. This was the human way of war. When faced with impossible odds, humans did not retreat or surrender. They attacked. They made the enemy pay for every victory, even if it cost them everything. All weapons, target the largest enemy ship. Major Chris Evans called out from his position at the weapons control station. I want every gun we have firing at once. The Vigilance opened fire with everything it had. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, railguns, and experimental energy weapons all fired simultaneously. The Devourers had adapted to Federation weapons, but they had never seen human military technology before. The attack caught the lead Devourer ship by surprise. Multiple weapons systems struck it at the same time, overwhelming its adaptive defenses. The ship staggered under the assault, its biomechanical hull smoking and sparking. But the Devourers learned quickly. Within minutes, they had analyzed the human weapons and begun developing countermeasures. Their return fire was devastating. The Vigilance shook under the impact of alien weapons, and damage reports came in from all over the ship. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Chief Murphy. "We have lost main power to the port weapons array." "Keep firing," Alex ordered. "All ships, prepare for close combat maneuvers." What happened next would be talked about in Federation military academies for generations. The human ship began to move in ways that violated every principle of space combat. Instead of maintaining safe distances and firing from long range, the Vigilance flew directly into the enemy formation. Lieutenant Commander Sam Parker led a squadron of human fighters in an attack that made the alien observers question human sanity. The small craft dove between the much larger Devourer ships, firing at point-blank range and dodging return fire by mere meters. "Parker, what are you doing?" Chris asked over the radio. "I am going to ram that ship," Sam replied calmly, as if he was discussing the weather. "Negative. You will be killed. That is the point. If I take out their command ship, the rest of their formation will be disrupted." Sam's fighter screamed toward the largest Devourer vessel at maximum speed. At the last second, he fired all of his missiles directly into the ship's bridge section, then crashed his fighter into the same spot. The explosion lit up the darkness of space. The Devourer command ship reeled from the impact. Its coordination systems were damaged, and the other enemy ships began to move less efficiently. But more Devourers were arriving every minute. "Captain," called out Weapons Officer Kate Johnson from her post, "we have incoming missiles. 36 warheads. Impact in 40 seconds. Can we stop them?" "Not all of them. Maybe half." Alex made a decision that would have horrified any Federation commander. "Ben, can you overload our main reactor?" "Yes, sir, but that would destroy the ship." "How big would the explosion be?" Ben worked quickly at his controls, running calculations. "Big enough to take out everything within 10 kilometers. "Do it. Set the timer for 30 seconds. Throughout the ship, the crew received the order to abandon ship, but this was where human nature differed from other species. Instead of rushing to the escape pods, many of the crew stayed at their posts. "Sir," said Kate Johnson, requesting permission to remain at my station. "Someone needs to keep the weapons firing until the end." "Permission granted," Alex replied. He was proud of his crew, but not surprised. This was how humans fought. They did not just resist the enemy. They made sure the enemy paid a price for victory. The Federation ships watched in amazement as human crew members continued working even as their ship prepared to explode. They kept firing weapons, maintaining shields, and coordinating attacks, right up until the final seconds. When the USV Vigilance exploded, it took 7 Devourer ships with it. The blast was so powerful that it damaged a dozen more enemy vessels. But more importantly, it did something the Devourers had never experienced before. It scared them. The remaining Devourer ships stopped their advance, for the first time since they had begun their campaign against the Federation. They hesitated. Their programming told them to adapt and overcome, but they had never faced an enemy that treated certain death as an acceptable tactical option in the escape pods. The surviving human crew members watched their ship's destruction with grim satisfaction. They had lost their vessel, but they had proven a point. The Devourers could be hurt. "All human personnel, this is Colonel Brooks," came a voice over the radio. "Prepare for boarding operations." The Federation observers could not believe what they were hearing. The humans had just lost their ship and most of their crew. Any reasonable species would retreat and regroup. Instead, they were planning to continue the attack. "Boarding operations?" Kethfer asked over the communication channel. "You cannot be serious." "Dead serious, Ambassador," Nina replied. "We are going to take control of one of their ships." What followed was the most savage boarding action in recorded galactic history. Human Marines, led by Sergeant Tony Martinez and his squad, used cutting tools to break into damaged Devourer vessels. They fought their way through corridors filled with biomechanical horrors, using weapons and tactics that the enemy could not predict or counter. The Devourers had adapted to energy weapons and explosive devices. They had not adapted to humans with knives and determination. The Marines fought hand-to-hand combat in zero gravity, using everything from rifles to improvised clubs made from ship debris. "This is insane," Corporal Lisa Frank shouted over the sound of weapons fire. "We are fighting inside their ship while it is still trying to kill us." "Insane is what we do best," Tony replied, shooting a Devourer creature that was trying to eat his leg. The humans fought their way to the enemy ship's central processor, the organic computer that controlled its adaptive systems. Instead of trying to study it or capture it intact, they did something that shocked the devil, or they destroyed it, not with weapons, but with their bare hands. They tore apart the biomechanical components, smashed the control systems, and generally wrecked everything they could reach. It was not sophisticated, it was not elegant, but it worked. With its central processor destroyed, the Devourer ship began to malfunction. Other ships in the enemy fleet started to show signs of confusion as their network was disrupted. "All Federation ships," came Alex's voice over the radio. He had survived the destruction of his ship and was now coordinating from an escape pod. "Attack now while they are confused. Hit them with everything you have." The Federation ships, inspired by human courage and terrified of being shown up by a species they had considered primitive, launched their own attack. Suddenly, the Devourers found themselves facing enemies who fought like humans. The battle lasted 6 more hours. When it was over, the Devourer fleet had been destroyed or driven off. The cost had been enormous. The USV Vigilance was gone, along with most of its crew. The Federation ships were badly damaged, but they had won. More importantly, they had learned something. The Devourers could be beaten, but only by fighters willing to pay any price for victory. As the survivors regrouped and counted their losses, Ambassador Kethfer found himself looking at the human survivors with a mixture of admiration and fear. These beings had just taught his people how to win a war. But they had also shown him something terrifying. Humans did not just fight to win. They fought like they enjoyed it. The Devourer home base was not a planet or a space station. It was something far worse. Deep in the heart of a dying star system, the aliens had built a massive structure that fed on the energy of a collapsing sun. The thing was huge beyond imagination, stretching across millions of kilometers of space. Captain Alex Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Federation flagship, studying the tactical display. After the victory at the rendezvous point, the survivors from multiple species had agreed to let the humans lead the final assault. It was a decision that many of them already regretted. "How many ships do we have?" Alex asked. 47 vessels, from 12 different species," reported Major Chris Evans. "Plus the crew members we rescued from destroyed ships. Total personnel is approximately 8,000. Alex nodded. 8,000 beings against an enemy that had consumed entire star systems. The odds were not good, but humans had faced worse odds before. What about the structure itself? Dr. Amy Watson, who had been studying the Devourer base for 3 days, activated a holographic display. It is partially organic and partially mechanical, just like their ships. The core appears to be a massive processing center where they break down consumed matter and create new Devourer units. Weaknesses? Only one that I can find. The central core is directly connected to the star's energy output. If we could disrupt that connection, the entire structure would lose power. How do we disrupt it? Amy looked uncomfortable. We would need to fly a ship directly into the core and detonate it from the inside. The explosion would need to be large enough to sever the energy conduits. Chris studied the tactical display. That would be a suicide mission. Whatever ship goes in will not be coming out. I know, Alex said quietly. Start preparing volunteers. Within an hour, every human on the fleet had volunteered for the suicide mission. This did not surprise Alex, but it shocked the Federation representatives. Ambassador Kethfer found himself trying to understand how an entire species could be willing to die for strangers. Captain Rodriguez, Kethfer said during the mission briefing, surely you cannot ask your people to sacrifice themselves for our war. I am not asking them to do anything, Alex replied. They volunteered. That is what humans do when faced with extinction. We do not run. We do not hide. We fight until there is nothing left to fight with. The final assault began 12 hours later. The Federation fleet approached the Devourer base from multiple directions, hoping to divide the enemy's attention. Hundreds of Defender ships rose from the massive structure to meet them. Colonel Nina Brooks led the ground assault. Her Marines had been training for days on how to fight inside biomechanical structures. They carried explosives, cutting tools, and weapons designed to cause maximum damage in close quarters. Remember? She told her troops as they prepared to board assault shuttles. We are not trying to capture this thing. We are trying to destroy it. Break everything you see, kill everything that moves, and make sure they remember that humans were here. The space battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships fought with a savagery that terrified both enemies and allies. They rammed Devourer vessels, exploded themselves to take out enemy formations, and used tactics that no civilized species would consider. Lieutenant Tom Baker piloted his fighter directly into the launch bay of a Devourer ship, then detonated all of his weapons at once. The explosion took out the entire hangar and everything in it. Chief Gunner Kate Johnson, who had survived the destruction of the USV Vigilance, manually operated weapon systems while her ship was being torn apart around her. She kept firing until the hull finally gave way and space claimed her. But the real battle was happening inside the Devourer base itself. Colonel Brooks and her Marines fought their way through corridors that changed shape as they moved. The biomechanical walls tried to crush them. Acid sprayed from hidden vents, and mechanical creatures attacked from every direction. This place is alive, reported Sergeant Dan Cooper over the radio. The walls are trying to eat me. Then shoot the walls, Nina replied, firing her rifle at a section of corridor that was reaching for her with metallic tentacles. The Marines pushed deeper into the structure, following Dr. Watson's maps toward the central core. Behind them, they left a trail of destruction. They did not just fight the Devourers, they destroyed everything they could reach. Control systems, processing centers, even decorative elements were smashed or blown up. Why are they destroying everything? Asked one of the Federation observers. They should be trying to capture the technology. Humans do not capture enemy technology, Ambassador Kethfer explained. He was beginning to understand these strange beings. They destroy it so completely that their enemies cannot use it again. Deep inside the base, the Marines reached the central core. It was a vast chamber filled with organic machinery and flowing energy conduits. At the center was the main processor, a massive biomechanical brain that controlled the entire Devourer network. There it is, Nina said, looking at the target they had come so far to destroy. Set the charges. Corporal Lisa Frank and her demolition team began placing explosives around the core chamber. They had enough firepower to level a city block, but they were not sure it would be enough to destroy something this large. Colonel, came Dr. Watson's voice over the radio, I am reading massive energy buildups throughout the structure. I think they know what you are trying to do. How long do we have? Maybe 10 minutes before they can seal the core chamber and trap you inside. 9 minutes later, the explosives were in place. Nina looked around at her remaining Marines. They had started with 50 soldiers. Now there were 12 left, all of them wounded. Time to go, she said. but as they tried to leave the core chamber, they found their exit blocked. The Devourers had sealed the passages and were flooding the area with their own defenders. There was no way out. "Colonel," called Sergeant Cooper, "we are trapped." Nina looked at the timer on the demolition charges. 3 minutes until detonation. Not enough time to fight their way out, even if there had been a way to go. "All stations, this is Colonel Brooks," she said into her radio. "Mission accomplished. Core charges are set and will detonate in 3 minutes. Tell Earth that we did our job." Back on the command ship, Alex listened to the transmission with a heavy heart. He had lost too many good people in this war, but he also felt proud. His Marines had completed their mission, even knowing they would not survive it. "All ships, prepare for immediate withdrawal," he ordered. "As soon as the core explodes, we get out of here." The explosion, when it came, was visible from 1,000 kilometers away. The central core of the Devourer base erupted in a flash of light that briefly outshone the dying star itself. Energy conduits throughout the massive structure overloaded and exploded in chain reactions. Within minutes, the entire base was breaking apart. Devourer ships that had been attacking the Federation fleet suddenly went dead as their command network collapsed. Without central coordination, they became easy targets for the surviving human and Federation vessels. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Of the 300 humans who had started the mission, fewer than 50 survived. Captain Alex Rodriguez was among the casualties, killed when his command ship was rammed by a desperate Devourer vessel. In the final moments of the battle, the war was over. The Devourer threat had been eliminated, but the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Jake Morrison arrived from Earth 3 weeks later to find a very different situation than he had expected. The Federation had won their war, but they were terrified of their human allies. Reports of human combat behavior had spread throughout the galactic community, and the reaction was not what anyone had hoped for. Ambassador Kethfer Jake said, "During their first meeting, I understand that our people performed well in the conflict." "Performed well," Kethfer repeated. "Admiral, your people saved our civilization, but they also showed us something that we are not sure we can live with." "What do you mean?" "Your species fights like demons. You sacrifice yourselves without hesitation. You destroy everything in your path, and you seem to enjoy the violence. We are grateful for your help, but we are also afraid of what you might do if we ever become your enemies." Jake felt a familiar sadness. Humanity had saved the galaxy, but they had also confirmed every fear the aliens had about them. Earth would remain quarantined, perhaps forever. "I understand your concerns," he said. "We will return to our own space and leave you in peace." But as the surviving human ships prepared to leave Federation space, they received dozens of new distress calls. Other alien civilizations had heard about the human victory over the Devourers. They were facing their own threats and wanted human help. Jake looked at the list of requests and smiled grimly. Humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most dangerous species was spreading. Soon, every civilization with problems would be calling Earth for assistance. The age of human isolation was definitely over. The age of humanity, as the galaxy's preferred weapon of last resort, was just beginning, and somewhere in deep space, other ancient threats began to stir, drawn by the news that the Devourers had been defeated. They wondered what kind of species could accomplish such a thing. They would find out soon enough.